When no other idiot decides to... Is he eating my salami?
That's what it looks like.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I know. Not really breakfast food, but it was looking good in the fridge. I had to dog some.
Yeah, it is good. Is that the last of it?
Yep. Oh, you didn't want some, did you?
Oh, it's all right. Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Something tells me that it's not fine. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to Cut to Black, a Soprano Sit Down. My name is Jim Scampoli, and I've seen many James Gandolfini movies.
My name's Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 2 James Gandolfini movies. Ho, ho, ho. Great choice of clip, Jim.
Yeah.
And a Merry Christmas to you, or a Happy Christmas, as
Thank
they say
you.
in Harry Potter.
Now, yeah, it wasn't easy to find a clip to open the show for this one. And man, Jacob, I have to imagine you've only seen 2 Jacob. You've only seen 2 James Gandolfini movies. Where are you thinking right now as far as James Gandolfini, the film actor?
I mean, as always, he's a bright spot in this, but he really, I guess I should say it first. In case you haven't watched it, don't be worried about spoilers. This is another film where if you haven't seen it, just don't worry about it. You're going to know how it ends 5 minutes into the film. It's a much worse film than the last one we watched, which was The Last Castle. As far as his acting, I mean, this is like a sitcom in the form of a film, sort of. That's kind of what's going on. There is no room to do any acting beyond very, it's supposed to be comedic, big scale acting, which, you know, in a way it's funny to see him in this because it's such a different mood they're going for, but it's also funny to see it and just go, he's literally Tony Soprano in so much of this.
Total, dude. Like when he first shows up, he's just being Tony Soprano, which is fun. I mean, it's clear that's why they cast him though too. Like they were going for that, and I mean, that's why there's a salami scene and there's a big thing. I mean, it falls away, but like for the first half of the movie, like his salami is brought up a few times. That's like his main arc until he gets a car that he had when he was young. So I mean, I'm just trying to see where we should broach this first. I guess let's get into the film overall, which I think it's kind of clear it's not a good film.
I think we have to say, you probably haven't seen this film. If you're like me, you're going to look it up and go like Ben Affleck, James Gandolfini, like Catherine O'Hara, all these people you kind of know about. And then like there's this film that you just have never heard of. But to summarize it, it's about Ben Affleck. He's an executive. He leaves an empty, shallow life with, I'm reading this, by the way, I didn't write this, with only wealth on his side. Facing another lonely Christmas ahead, he revisits his old childhood home in the hope of reliving some old holiday memories. But he finds that the house in which he was raised is no longer the home in which he grew up. Now, that is a better summary than the actual plot of the film, which is not quite correct, but you kind of get the idea. Basically, Ben Affleck's a millionaire who rents a spot with a family for Christmas, who they happen to live in his old home because he has issues and is a crazy person.
But that's like, I mean, since it's already apparent that, I mean, it's not a good movie, but I think that there were a lot of things in place, in my opinion, for a good movie, because I think the cast is really good. I honestly didn't even know Christina Applegate was in the movie until she just pops up like later in the movie. And I'm like, oh, I like all these people, and it's a good cast. And I actually think the idea is decent as well, because, you know, I like that I always like the little off kilter take on a Christmas movie, which, you know, it's fairly popular these days anyways. I mean, I love Krampus. I love Bad Santa. I watch every year. I love that movie. And then I was just before we started recording, because like the wiki didn't have a ton on it. Obviously, it's like no one's spending time looking up factoids. It's not like The Godfather where people want to like research and they want to interview everyone and ask them about it. But I switched on over to IMDb and there are some notes on it. And yeah, the production was shot without a completed script. As a result,
you really sense this.
You do
Sorry to cut in, but that's kind of. I totally agree with what you're saying. That even reading like the plot on Wikipedia, I'm like, this kind of sounds okay, and it's not a bad concept for a film. But there's a lot of things that fall short. Sorry, go on with the quote there. Yeah, it's fine. As a result, there are many delays and arguments over what to shoot. James Gandolfini admitted in a behind-the-scenes interview that most of the film was improvised. Because that, and I feel that as well, because I kind of feel like even in a lot of the scenes, I'm like, oh, this is kind of almost there. Like a lot of the things, like just the movie in general, it feels like there are things that are almost there for a fun, like darker take that has, even if you know where the ending's going, like a lot of Christmas movies, you're going to know where the ending's going, but you could still have some fun with it. And yeah, if there's a bit more with obviously we'd love more Gandolfini if he had a little bit more to play with, because I was expecting maybe more for him to play with by the end, which his character's almost like forgotten kind of like and yeah, but anyways, and then also, I mean, this movie was pushed back because they didn't want to go up against Ben Affleck's other movie, Paycheck, which is a movie I don't remember at all, but I guess was one of John Woo's like last movies to ever make in the US. It was that great. What seemed like a breezy idea for an engineer to net him millions of dollars leaves him on the run for his life, piecing together why he's being chased. That's Paycheck for you. So they bumped it to 2004. James, I did look this up while watching it. James Gandolfini is only 10 years older than Christina Applegate. He's also only 11 years older than Ben Affleck. Which at least with the Affleck, it makes sense because he's paying him anyways. Jon Favreau passed on this movie to make Elf, which, great I guess made a good choice there. And and I kind of want to dig into this. I wish I did ahead of time, but John White, who is Ben Affleck's stand-in, I guess he has a book called Dreams That Die, Misadventures in Hollywood. And there's a devastating depiction of what the filming of this movie was like. Oh my God. Forget about the Soprano sessions. Let's just get that and do another episode on this podcast, do a book club on that. I really want to dig into the behind the scenes stuff because you kind of get that sense that it must have been a bit of a nightmare because the scenes don't quite work. It's like you kind of get what they're going for, but that clip you just played, it's kind of funny because it's like The Sopranos. He likes his salami or whatever. I'm also like, cool. Also, what salami's not breakfast food? I disagree vehemently. But when they have like the big close up of like, oh, and then James Gandolfini walks off and like, no, it's no big deal. And he's like, is really mad, but it's just so anticlimactic. It's not a proper scene. Like it's almost there. Like there's clearly an idea, but it's not executed well. And that's kind of my summary of the whole film.
Yeah, I do want to call out the scene right before that, where he goes to slide down the banister and just falls on the. That made me laugh hard. I'm a sucker for a good pratfall. Not to say that there always will work, but I think that was a good one, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, maybe I was just glancing away, but I didn't even get that he was going to slide down in a fun Christmas way. I just saw him fall through the banister, and I was like, yeah, of course he fell through the banister. I guess the home is in disrepair. I don't know what they're trying to communicate. One thing.
Actually, let me see. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think I did find a little bit of this guy's book.
Oh,
name of the movie, was Surviving Christmas. Oh, because news of James Gandolfini's death brought back warm memories of when I worked on a movie back in 2003. Surviving Christmas. It starred Ben Affleck, who at the time was in the eye of the celebrity storm as a result of high-profile relationship with Jennifer Lopez. Gandolfini was the main co-star in the movie, and I was there as Affleck's stand-in.
Was he the one who, not stuntman, so he's not the one who fell through the banister, but he was standing in for him when Ben Affleck couldn't be fucked to get to the set, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and maybe Gandolfini was bouncing lines off him because, Affleck couldn't be fucked. Just stand there. He had been on countless movies and TV sets and seen most of the major stars close up. The days of being excited by Hollywood, of experiencing butterflies in my stomach as I drive over to the Warner Brothers or Paramount or Disney Studios to work a movie or TV show, were behind me. One of the few stars still capable of inducing that buzz of excitement I had lost was James Gandolfini. I mean, this is good because obviously we watched this movie because of James Gandolfini. Yeah. Along with probably the entire Western world by this point, I was a huge fan of The Sopranos and especially the character of Tony Soprano, who he turned into a cultural icon. Surviving Christmas was one of those bad movies, evidenced in the fact that it was only in theaters a few weeks before being relegated to DVD. That's another thing I did find out. Because they do this a lot with holiday movies, at least here in the States. They released it at the end of October. I mean, I guess it's because they probably knew it wasn't going to do well. But I feel like either way, you're setting it up to fail. I get it's close to holidays, but they released it at the end of October. They took it out of theaters before Thanksgiving, so like mid-November. They released it on DVD December 22nd of that year. So like 8 weeks later, it was on DVD. So it was an absolute privilege to be able to watch Gandolfini work every day. His instincts and timing as an actor were impeccable, as was his command of infection and the ability to know where the drama was in any given scene. More importantly, when it comes to the character of the man, was the fact that he took the time to get to know the name of everyone on the crew, the so-called little guys that most Hollywood actors blithely ignore or hardly take any notice as they go about their business over the 10 weeks of a typical movie shoot. He would smoke these huge cigars outside the soundstage or when we were shooting an exterior scene on location somewhere. I also recall how in between scenes or setups, he would sit outside his trailer playing and fiddling around with these big electric model cars and trucks for hours, always with a big smile on his face. That's hilarious. Yeah. He's just hanging out. Yeah. He's got Bobby's conductor hat on. Just before a large crowd scene early one morning in a small town called Orange, south of LA, which has been specially turned into the Chicago suburb of during Christmas time, where the story was set, complete with street decorations, fake snow, hundreds of extras. He was pacing up and down, puffing on one of his cigars. He seemed completely oblivious to the activity and the people around him as he focused on the scene. Suddenly, he let loose with a giant roar as if declaring that he was ready to shoot. In the process, sending a shiver of energy through the set that succeeded in waking everybody up. Dude, imagine he's just, everyone's just kind of hanging out, like reading, fucking around or whatever. And then Gandolfini just starts like roaring like a lion.
Yeah, I can see it. I can hear it.
There's also the time as the movie entered its final couple of weeks of shooting, he arranged to have every crew member fitted out with a commemorative bomber jacket, which he paid for himself. My most vivid memory of the man was the morning he approached me just before heading into set to start shooting his first scene of the day. First, looking around to make sure no one could hear, he came up close and said, "Could I speak to you for a minute?" As I followed him over to the side.
You're better than Ben.
Yeah,
you got it. In this book.
Yeah, you know what, kid? You got it. As I followed him over to the side, I don't mind admitting to feeling a little nervous, even though I'm 6'2" and fairly big myself. Yeah, a little humble brag. Gandolfini dwarfed me in size and had hands the size of snow shovels. What's this about? I remember thinking to myself, what have I done? He found a quiet spot on the soundstage, stopped, turned around, and with a furrowed brow that was pure Tony Soprano, said in his broad New Jersey accent, "Did I see you in Ralph's on Beverly and Fairfax last night around 8 o'clock? Ralph's is a supermarket chain in LA. He was asking if he'd seen me in the supermarket. I looked at him, shook my head, and told him, no, wasn't me. Okay, he said, I wasn't sure. I just want you to think I was being ignorant because I didn't say hi." And with that, he headed back over to set to start his scene. James Gandolfini was a Hollywood star, and I was a mere stand-in, a complete nobody in the scheme of things. Yet there he was, just prior to shooting a scene in the movie, concerned that he may have slighted me by failing to say hi in the supermarket. He didn't know me, and he didn't have to do that. He was a genuinely decent human being, a class act on and off screen, which in Hollywood is a rare thing indeed. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Kind of fun story. That's not actually from his book. He does plug his book in this article. This was, I guess, shortly after he passed, just like a quick blog he wrote.
Well, that will do. I guess we'll skip
Yeah.
the episode where we read his book. Sorry, dude. You just gave
Yeah.
away the goods for free. That's what we wanted. Yeah, no, it was worth watching the film just for that, because that's kind of the stuff where, it's hard not to be nostalgic about James Gandolfini and, learning more about him, what he could have done, who he was. Great bomber jacket story. Yeah, it's cool. Too bad about the film though.
Yeah, and yeah, kind of back to what we're talking about. Like, there's a couple moments, and I think you could see the potential. And I mean, just the idea, like, because obviously most Christmas movies, they're gonna play with the how commercial Christmas is, and like that's the thing. And this is literally someone buying a family because they're lonely.
Yeah.
So it is a bum out, because I think even reading like that, because we were talking before we started recording, like there's what, 4 credited writers on this?
It's 4 credited writers. There's, like, as far as I can tell, 2 writing pairs where Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, they've written together before. They've written Can't Hardly Wait, and they've written Josie and the Pussycats, and this piece of shit.
Yeah.
And they also, it's never really super, like, doesn't fill you with confidence when it's like screenplay by, and there's like 4 or 5 people. There's a couple of other writers on it as well who've worked on, a couple good things. That 70s show, Murphy Brown for some reason, but there's a whole host of people in the kitchen. I feel like the strong vision, it was based on an idea or story from the first 2 people I mentioned, written Can't Hardly Wait. And it's not a bad idea in itself, but the idea of them filming this without a script, like, that's the worst thing they could have done to make this not work, because there's just no heart behind it in my, like, and there's not enough of a basis for the scenes to stand on. Scenes might work on their own in isolation, but the story doesn't make sense, really. We should also say it's directed by Mike Mitchell, who directed Sky High, and Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, and Alvin and the Chipmunks, Lego Movie 2. Well, no, sorry, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked, Trolls, the first one.
Which was a big hit, apparently. And Trolls 2 is
Yep. And he, interestingly, he directed like one of the Shreks that nobody cares about, unless you really care about Shrek, like the third one or whatever. But he was like a story artist on Ants, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third. So I would put this fella in the pile of good people who are involved. I love Sky High, and like some of these animated films are not bad. So again, a good person, but it just didn't come together. And did we say James Gandolfini's the dad? Like, I don't even know if we got into that, but obviously James Gandolfini's the dad, guys.
Yeah, James Gandolfini's the dad. Because there's also just like little things about the movie too. Because again, we're going, like, the story is, Ben Affleck, he's got it all, but does he have it all? I mean, because he's calling his friends on Christmas, and there's some funny asides there, like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, doing the family thing. Good call. Mind if I hang out? Like, he's just desperate to hang out with someone on Christmas, and then he just shows up. He has to he hunts down his girlfriend's therapist at the airport.
This makes no fucking sense. This is what I'm talking about, where the idea of the script, the idea behind the whole film is not communicated well at all in the first few scenes, because there's so much stuff where you're like, this is a film about a psychopath, which I guess they wanted to communicate that. But basically they set up Ben Affleck as like he's got it all. Now, if this film came out a few years later, he would have been a .com millionaire. He would have been a Mark Zuckerberg. It would have made total sense, because he lives in this like mansion-like apartment and all. But actually, they just have a quick scene to show he's in advertising, I guess.
Yeah.
But he's like a hotshot, and he doesn't like wear rich people clothes. He's like a slob or whatever. But he's just... He's in advertising, so he's like, it's like a Mad Men scene in this film from the early 2000s, And he talks about like, oh, we're gonna sell this eggnog that's like got alcohol in it. I didn't even know there was eggnog that didn't have alcohol in it. We're gonna sell this eggnog, and we're gonna sell it with the idea of everyone hates hanging out with their family at Christmas, right? So you need to get drunk, right? That's how everything's sold at Christmas, by the way. But so it's not really revolutionary, but that's his idea. That's to show us that he does. That scene shows us he hates Christmas, right? And then the next scene is all about him trying to call people. Well, no, sorry. There's his girlfriend. He gets tickets to go to Fiji on Christmas with his girlfriend. Again, emphasizing for me, he doesn't care about Christmas. He wants to get away for Christmas. But no, what the film is actually trying to say is this guy hates being lonely. That's not communicated in any of these scenes. But that's the next scene, as you said, is quite good when he's calling people and everyone's saying no. Like, that's when we get into that. But it's just so clumsy how it's put together. And then getting to the scene you mentioned, he hunts down his girlfriend's therapist.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that this scene is in the movie at all is bananas. Never mind the fact that they're in airport security, and he's like because this is after 9/11. He's somehow just at the security gates, but having a shouting match with his girlfriend's therapist, who he's bribed to get in contact with. This is psychopathic behavior. So if they want to communicate that, that's fine. I guess that's part of what they want to say. But then it's supposed to be this comedic thing where he gets some advice from this therapist, and then the whole rest of the film is based on that. Why couldn't he just have a therapist? I don't know, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's something of how I don't know. But also, even going back to his girlfriend, like, he has this girlfriend at the beginning, and he offers her like first class tickets to what was it, Fiji? Something like that. But she at the beginning, she's like, no, family and Christmas. But then later she needs to be the vapid, like materialistic, like she has to change her character by the end so Christina Applegate can be a character, because then she's like, well, no, I know they try to make this a soft excuse of like, well, no, like she realized her family stinks too. But it's still like, even before that, when she's all excited about the bracelet, it's like this girl that's excited about the bracelet and wants to see him would be super excited about first class tickets to Fiji, even on Christmas. Like, it just even that doesn't quite wash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they didn't. It does reek again of like, they gotta, we gotta make the movie. We don't have a script. Let's make it, because I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. But
all throughout, they're kind of acting like everyone they're acting like, oh, it's clear that he just hates his family and doesn't want to see his family. I have no idea why people don't assume that his family's not around anymore. There's like, that would obviously be the thing, because the reason she's mad at the start is, you never introduced me to your family. And it's just clear from the way he's talking that there's like no family around for him to introduce her to. That's why it's so fucking lonely. And everyone says like, you must really hate your family if you want to hang out with us. It's supposed to be like a reveal for us, the viewers, I guess. Yeah. But it's obvious that that's the case from the start. That's another thing that doesn't quite land.
Yeah, it's so clear there's a tragedy. Like, we're going to be opened up to a tragic story. But even going to like the Gandolfini's family, because we have Gandolfini and Catherine O'Hara, and then they have their teenage son. But like, initially, I'm like, wait, so why does this family hate Christmas? Because I get like the situation's weird. Like, who would want to be like at the beck and call of a guy because he's, gonna give you a lot of money. But some of the things are just basic ass things. Like, we gotta get a Christmas tree. Are you serious? I gotta wear a Santa hat. Like, I mean, I get it's more because someone's telling you to do it, but even initially, like, I mean, later, I guess it's the more the reveal is that just they're an unhappy family, and that's like, they're splitting up or whatever. But it's not apparent enough initially why, like, just basic ass, like putting up Christmas decorations and stuff is like, are you serious? Like, Christmas lights. Like, it just doesn't really come across why, like, what the issue is.
Yeah. They're basically married with children, which is why Christina Applegate's there also. But yeah, it's basically one other movie that I thought of watching all of these scenes was Meet the Parents, which I rewatched quite recently, which is obviously not the same plot, but it's similar in the way that it's like about family dynamics and comedy and super awkward, weird situations. And I thought of that because Meet the Parents goes into all of these like absurd situations, but it's all grounded in realism. It's grounded in like they have these super awkward moments and conflicts, but it's grounded in like we believe that these characters are who they say they are. And in this film, you don't really know you don't understand any of the characters, or you do, but on a very surface level of like, I'm saying the lines now because these lines were in the script. So now it's time to talk about how I don't think this is good and I'm a commercial person. I don't, yeah, it's just, this film doesn't have a base to stand on for any of the scenes, where if they'd established things better, it might have made more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do like, I mean, I guess this is more of a product of, uh, the times like early 2000s. Not to say that, I mean, obviously there's dark humor and stuff now, but I don't know, like when the kid has a joke about like, people are the guys sending him bus tickets over the internet, like I mean, it's like a pedophile joke. And then the girlfriend's family, like, oh, I love how colorful your tree is.
Yes.
Reminds me of the colors of the simple people in Mexico, bright and vulgar. Like,
yes, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, because I enjoy, I mean, this might sound weird, but I do kind of enjoy like, I guess, mean comedy. Like, not to say that it's too mean, but like, again, I guess Bad Santa is like a great example because it's kind of mean, but then there's heart to it, and it like flips itself on that and plays off of it. And I guess I more appreciate that this movie's trying to go for that. It's just that obviously it doesn't work, and they had no script, so there's no like guiding force or basis. I wonder, like, why would they just rush it? I mean, I guess these are questions that come up with Hollywood productions all the time. I mean, I'm sure at the time Affleck was a big name, so we need Affleck, and obviously Gandolfini. And Gandolfini, if he's working on The Sopranos, he has a window when he can be available. And then Affleck, I'm sure this was actually like a string of bombs for Affleck. There's a whole paragraph about how like he has Daredevil, which was, I mean, even though critically a lot of people didn't like it, but it did well. And then basically after that was like this movie and like every other movie until Gone Baby Gone, 4 years later, were all flops between Geely, Paycheck, Jersey Girl. I think there might have even been like another one. Oh, Hollywood Land. Oh, Hollywood Land was a comeback film. So yeah, but anyways, basically, yeah, a bunch of bombs until he directed his own film. But yeah, that's why, like, I mean, I guess it's easy to sit in our seat with hindsight and be like, why would you just make a movie without a script? But then they're the people that thinking that they're just banking on stars are like, well, we only have this money for this amount of time. We only have this window and we have to get it done. But I'm probably giving them too much of a benefit of the doubt.
No, I totally see where you're coming from. It is just astounding though. You have four people credited as writers, and you didn't have like a script at the end of it, or probably they must have had like different versions of scripts that were kind of cobbled together. So probably in one version, our millionaire was more focused on, hating Christmas and hating people. And then in another version, he's more like, I hate being alone. And those kind of got mashed up. And then in another version, there was probably something about his girlfriend's therapist earlier on. So maybe it made sense in that version for him to track down his girlfriend's therapist in the airport and all that shit. It didn't in this version that we watched. But yeah, it's amazing how Ben Affleck just got through all of that. It's being a handsome white man in Hollywood, it sure has its perks.
I mean, two of the other writers were writers on The Simpsons. Although I guess they only wrote like a couple episodes, but still, I mean.
And that 70s show, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the 70s show, yeah. And the Grubs.
Of course, the Grubs. Don't know what the fuck. So I wanted to go back. So after this airport scene, right, the doctor tells him to write a list of his grievances, burn them, and I guess at his childhood home or whatever, and burn the list and then say, I forgive you. And then so he goes to do that. And then James Gandolfini comes out of his house with a snow shovel and hits him in the back of the head. This scene was great because I totally expected him to start chopping this guy up, like, because he's so Tony. He's almost got like the robe on, right? I think he's in his, I don't know, underpants or whatever. He just whacks him over the head with a shovel. You totally expect him to cut this guy up, salt him and just distribute the body parts around town. But instead, he wakes up inside and gets a little tour, and then makes the offer of $250,000 to spend Christmas with the family, and they get a contract and everything. And
Well, even
the
that
inciting incident.
like the order of events, like after he wakes up in the house, like I mean, at this point I'm kind of nitpicking, but it's like because he's like, "Can I get a tour?" But then Catherine O'Hara's like, "Yeah, of course," and because she gives him the tour, but then after she's like, "Get this guy the fuck out of here."
Exactly.
And Gandolfini's like holding on for the money or whatever, but it's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why is she like, yeah, of course. I mean, I got the impression when she said that she's like kind of like fucking with her husband, but yeah, just being whatever. But then it's like a turn on a dime. It's like, oh, get the fuck out of here. I don't know. But again, like, and I was even thinking during this movie, I was like, it is amazing. Like, on one hand, going back to like criticizing the producers or the studio for going ahead with a film that doesn't have a script. It is amazing if there are people in something that you like that you will withstand like quite a bit. Because I was thinking that during this movie, I was like, I don't like this, but I do like James Gandolfini. I like Catherine O'Hara. I like Christina Applegate. I like Ben Affleck. I know a lot of people don't like Ben Affleck, but I like me some Affleck. I mean, I'm a Kevin Smith fan from way back, even though I don't like him anymore. But that's a whole other story. But Affleck in those movies was always good.
Yeah, and it's also like the thing he's requesting is so small. For $250,000 to just spend Christmas with the family. The whole thing is that it's a weird thing. So basically, obviously, in the story, after this, it has to kind of get worse and worse for the family to put the pressure on, and they have to go, oh, I can't believe we agreed to this, and then like try to decide, are we gonna go ahead with this or not? So then he forces them to go out and buy a tree. Like you said, they're super grumpy about it, even though it's basic ass Christmas shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're the Santa cap in public. Again, it's more someone telling you to do something. But then, guess what? If someone gave me $250,000, I wouldn't mind the Santa hat that much.
I wouldn't understand that. And I guess it's also too because, like, again, going back to there not being a script, because it's almost like they realize in the scene that, okay, yeah, this isn't that bad. So then they have to make Ben Affleck's character like a little bit more insufferable, like for no reason, which I get is kind of the point. But like I don't know, he has to be like a douche about it. But then Gandolfini's character has to be annoying about it. I think one of the main reviews that's quoted on the wiki kind of explains it, even though I don't hate. I mean, I actually enjoy movies with unlikable characters, but I guess they describe it better. Surviving Christmas is unpleasant characters attacking each other for 90 minutes before delivering a typical, hollow, anti-consumerist message. It was ranked number 91 out of the 100 worst reviewed films of the 2000s, I guess, of the whole decade. But yeah, it's like it'd be fine to make him unlikable. And I mean, obviously, looking at it from a capitalistic point of view of like, oh man, rich guys could just hire a family, or even like the Parasite version of this movie. I mean, maybe this is like Parasite before Parasite in a lot of ways.
Right.
But if there was just a little bit more finesse with that, where you can make him unlikable, but have him coming up with silly things for them to do. I don't know. I'm saying the same shit over and over again, but continue.
I want to go over the beats of the film because I'd honestly forgotten stuff, and then I was reading it and I was like, oh yeah, that made no sense. But one thing before that, he does call James Gandolfini and Catherine O'Hara mom and dad, which is like, again, I want to see a scene with him and an actual therapist, like in The Sopranos, like because I'm trying to understand this character, but he immediately jumps in and starts calling them mom and dad. And like later on, it's obviously revealed that he didn't have much many Christmases growing up. He's trying to relive that, but there's obviously something fucked up going on in this man's brain, and we're not privy to what's happening in it. He's just being annoying. We're not with this character at any point of the story. But yeah, anyway, so one thing that happens is Christina Applegate shows up, the daughter, and our main character, Ben Affleck, is really annoyed because he never had a sister. He never had a dad either, but, he's fine with that part of the
Yeah, I don't think he had a
story.
brother. I don't think he had a brother either.
Yep, I don't think so. So anyway, he suggests she should portray the maid or whatever. This bit is kind of like close to being fun, where Drew has written a script for them and sits them all down. And that's kind of a fun idea, making them all read out these things, if this is actually what I'm going for. I'm sorry, we got off on the wrong foot. And then that he hires a local actor to play his own grandfather. That's a funny idea as well. And there's even a couple of funny moments that come from that, I think. But in short, it's not really well developed enough, and it just ends up feeling like we're sitting in these scenes for quite a long time,
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right. The script thing comes up, it has potential, and then it doesn't go anywhere, and then it just kind of doesn't come up again. Doodah shows up. Doodah's a fun idea, and then of course, clearly when Doodah shows up later, like, I mean, you could speak what's going to happen before it happens, because I'm like, oh, Doodah's going to be black or Chinese now, and Gandolfini's trying to warn Ben Affleck, but he's not going to hear it. He's not having it.
Yeah, because later on, stakes are, quote, raised, because the reason that matters later is that his girlfriend from the first scene, who clearly he doesn't care about, by the way, because he only cares about not spending Christmas alone after that. So he never really cared about this person. But she shows up later, and he's like, oh shit, now we have to pretend for realsies that you guys are my family. Again, I get that could make sense. But as I said, he never cared about this girl from the start. But it's really, really important to pretend that we're all a family for their sake. And as you said, his black grandfather shows up, the actor and all of that. Another thing is, skipping back, Ben Affleck takes the two kids of the family, who are roughly his age, sledding. And they go up like in a helicopter, because again, showing he has all this money to blow. They go up in a helicopter and find like a huge hill, and they go down it. And then he moves to kiss Christina Applegate, who he's just talked about how annoyed he is. And I suppose that's this shorthand we're supposed to understand, that when two people pick on each other, they actually like each other. But in this scenario, they have absolutely no reason to like each other. Or at least she has no reason to like him, because he's a crazy person who showed up and is paying her family to hang out with them and make them do stuff they don't want to do. But of course, there's a romance. Like, as soon as she showed up, I was like, the romance is here.
Well, and
it's actually the fact that this is written, that it's at the start of the wiki, Surviving Christmas is a 2004 American romantic comedy. I would dispute that fact.
And honestly, just the simple choice of like not having him go to kiss her in that scene, and having him try to do it in the later scene where he like brings her to the tree that she told the story about, and then it gets ruined because he just like spends and tries to do this big thing. If it happened there, it would have made at least more sense, because there's at least more time. Like the goal of that was just supposed to be what he says at the beginning, of just her having fun. Because he's like, hey, why don't you just come on? We'll have some fun. What, you don't like fun? And then she's like, of course I like fun. That's what fun is. So if you just have the moment where they're laughing, they have fun, then they spend time because they both have the sniffles or whatever. Like, you can keep the same order of events and just not have the classic Hollywood, we fell. Are we going to kiss now because we fell?
I feel like that would happen. That is such a trope that it should happen in any scene where anyone falls over, really. Like, that would happen with you and me if we fell over, like, because it's the rules of television. You have to almost kiss if you fall over together. So, and then,
I mean, there's the whole subplot is going on in the midst of it, or maybe you were about to introduce it. The Gandolfini and Catherine O'Hara, like, Gandolfini fills them in that they're going to split up. And then,
here's one thing. Another thing that makes no sense. Gandolfini comes in, right, and is like, hey, kid, you gotta leave, because
Yeah.
me and the wife are going to split up. But the order of events, as explained to me, is they've already decided to split up.
Yeah.
After the holidays, they're going to tell their kids. So maybe they decided that before he showed up. Like he says you have to leave because we're going to split up or whatever. But it makes no sense because they've already decided that. They're already bad. He's not telling them to leave so they don't split up. They've already decided they're
Yeah.
going to split up. So maybe splitting 250K down the middle would be a good sort of separation present for both of them. But now our main character, Drew, or Ben Affleck, he starts to sort of try to... I don't know what's happening here, to be honest. He encourages them to like indulge in themselves. I guess he who wants to keep them together, right? Like that's kind of what
Yeah.
he's doing. And he's like, basically this ends with James Gandolfini buying a car, and he sends Christine off to a photographer to get some glamour shots, which I guess, yeah, she doesn't feel sexy, doesn't feel young, and he helps her with that. They have a scene where that is almost touching, where he says nice things to her and she like almost breaks down crying, and I was like, oh, that was the scene. That was kind of the scene there. But then
Yeah.
it leads to her going off, getting all these sexy photographs taken. There's a disconnect in my brain because later on those photos are on like a porn site. What happened there? Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that photographer was paid for that. It wasn't like a sleazy back alley thing, because this
Yeah.
guy's a millionaire. He's not going to send this mom to the person playing his mom to a porn place, but those porn pictures show up online so that the kid who's always watching porn, that's his personality, can freak out about seeing pictures of his naked mom, and they can be like revealed later. But it makes no sense. Or did I miss something, Jim? I don't understand why they're on the internet.
It doesn't really make sense because like, yeah, I mean, because his line is like, I know the top like fashion photographer in Chicago. And you think like that's enough to just set up the joke that he's eccentric and weird, and that's why her makeover is weird. But it does, you're right, it totally doesn't wash that then it's on like a porn ad or something like that, because you can either do the joke that he like has his assistant set it up and it ends up in like a shady back alley place, or it's the top fashion photographer and he's a European eccentric, like the Autobahn from Big Lebowski or something like that, the nihilist. Like you do one or two of the jokes. You can't just like squish the jokes together because you want to, have the crazy stuff later. And then also the goof on top of that of how like the son is so frozen by it that he can't stop staring at it.
Yeah, he's there watching that, and it seems to be just one image forever of his naked mom. And like the fact that the doodah, the grandpa actor comes in like, oh, what's this now? Back in my day, you had to take a dirty lady around the corner and give her a penny, and she'll show her dirty bits. How does this work? And picks up the mouse and tries to click stuff like, and he's like, oh, I'll show you how it works, weird old man. I'll show you how to get porn. We'll be brothers in this. And then, oh, that looks like your mother. And then he's frozen there for ages until the rest of the family shows up. And later he throws his computer down the stairs, understandably so.
And I guess thinking about it now, it's because they were like, shit, what's the son doing while this is happening? And then someone was finding like, what if he's just like stuck up in his room like he's frozen?
Yeah.
What if he just and what was the other thing? Oh, I do like the joke, this backing up a bit, where Gandolfini gets the car and he's like, hey, I actually got propositioned by a hooker. Like that's it's a dumb joke. But also the whole Gandolfini Catherine O'Hara thing, the end of it just fizzles out, which would work if they had set up the relationship differently. Because doesn't it just kind of end with him being like, I don't want to go. Like, where am I going to go? And then she's like, well, just don't go then. And it's like, that's kind of the resolution. And in a different movie, or if it was set up differently, if it was like a weird indie drama, or if they handled kind of the balance of like humor and reality a little bit better, where like that tone fit, that would almost work. But it's just kind of like, again, I guess it just fizzles out. Like they think they're doing something that they're not doing.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, because that exchange of words could actually be really good in a really good film. And I think they do a good job of it, like as well, because they're basically like emotionally repressed. They don't talk about their feelings or whatever, and they're just resentful towards each other. And he sort of sidles in at this play where they're doing Christmas Carol in a local production, and kind of mentions that I wouldn't even know where to go. And she's like, just don't go then. And he's like, is that okay? And she's like, yeah, that's good. But it's like he's vulnerable in that moment. There's acting going on there, but as you said, the relationship was never really established enough that it adds up.
Yeah, because they play lip service to like, he notices that she, even though she looks insane, like from her makeover, but he's complimenting her. And then she kind of is like, oh yeah, didn't we know someone with this car? Yeah, us. And then, there's some stuff where like, oh, this is working. I mean, immediately there's going to be a weird backfire. I thought maybe there's going to be some more backfire with the car, but then the car never comes up again. And then even with like the idea that, yeah, then the Duda's understudy is now hitting on her because he saw her in on the porn picture, but that kind of doesn't go anywhere. I mean, Gandolfini does make he does show that like he cares about her in a way, but it kind of just fizzles into nothing. Like, I don't know, like that's the whole movie. Everything is almost a thing.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
it's
And
Tony
we already,
when he's like, you ever almost get the answer and then it just goes away.
Yeah, I think all of this is indicative of like they had multiple scripts versions, and a lot of the scenes work on their own, but they're not connected to the other scenes properly. So Christina Applegate, Ben Affleck takes her out and shows her this tree that's been covered in ice, like a story she told about her childhood, and it is a touching moment, but then he overdoes it and brings in like a whole pageant production with people coming in and singing carols and whatever, and she is fucking disgusted, demands that he leaves, which it doesn't really make sense because, again, they don't have enough behind there. She's supposed to be like, whoa, I thought you were different, but you were actually, the thing I originally thought. And meanwhile, they've had like 2 scenes together. Yeah. I'm like, there's nothing here. They're trying, but there's nothing here. And then, as we said, original girlfriend's won over by this bracelet, shows up with her family. By the way, she's like, oh, thank you for sending me this bracelet. I'm going to show up at your family home and we're going to spend Christmas Eve with you, and I'm not going to ask about it, even though we've broken up already. This makes no fucking sense. Can you imagine being so rude that you would show up at someone's place on Christmas Eve without asking or anything?
It's insanity. And then even going back, because, I mean, again, it sets up kind of a fun idea, but they're just breezing through everything because now Christina Applegate gets to play along, but also like get revenge in a way because she's, coming in.
She wants, I want to emphasize what she wants revenge for at this point, right? So she's really upset about the overproduction of the tree. So she goes away for a while, and then all of this happens where the other family shows up. She comes back, and Ben Affleck's in the kitchen, and she's like, you know what? I want to apologize. I overreacted. Which makes sense because she did overreact. And then she smooches him, which makes no sense. Unless she's like, he's a millionaire, fuck it. But like, there's no relationship going on there. But then she's annoyed about him bringing his ex there, even though there was nothing happening between the two of them. So she takes her revenge for her kissing him without, asking or anything. She takes revenge for the vibes between them by just making fun of him in front of his girlfriend, or I guess is what's happening, right?
Yeah, basically, because now he's like, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to be out of your life, but just go like drive around for an hour while we kind of, finish our charade in front of this girl, my ex. But then she's like, oh, they're having fun, huh? Well, I'll have fun too. So now she gets to come in and say things like, oh, she's not fat and stuff like that. And I guess I'm a basic ass bitch because I was expecting, because remember when she kisses him and steps away, she's like, let me get your present. And then she just like throws the present at him because she sees him kissing his ex. So I'm expecting that present to come up later on.
You are a basic ass bitch, Jim.
But also, like, this movie, it does all the basic ass shit. So
no,
I
I
can't.
mean, like you're asking this movie to add up or make sense.
Yeah. So I'm
Basic,
expecting
you
like,
want basic story shit, is what I'm saying. You bitch.
yeah, okay. Because I'm expecting like maybe as he's about to leave after everything's in shambles, he finds the present. And I mean, there's nothing set up where it could work, but you could squeeze something in there and it means something or whatever. Or she brings it up later when things are, coming back, whatever it might be. But no, I mean, I guess she got him a gift card for Radio Shack or something, and then she had to throw it against the wall because he was kissing his ex-girlfriend when she came back with it.
Yeah, and during all this, she also finds out about Ben Affleck's sad backstory that his father left his mother when he was 4, and his mother worked really hard and always worked Christmas, and she'd get him like a big stack of pancakes on Christmas Eve until he was 18, and then she passed away while he was at college. And he ends this story by going, "I've never been in a coffee shop since," which is supposed to be a dramatic line, but it's fucking bananas that's the line.
And I think this is a fine backstory, honestly.
It's just the fact that it never came up, that like no one ever thought like maybe he doesn't have family, and that's part of why he's insane.
Yeah, and I mean, if the movie could have revealed that a little, not even a little, probably a lot sooner. You didn't have to treat that as a reveal because, like you'd said before, it's clear to us, the audience, that there's a tragedy or something going on. It's not that he just hates his family. I mean, clearly there's a story there, so we're just waiting for it. You could fill us in and then have other people find out after.
And the fact that he's calling, James Gandolfini dad and everything, there's just so much potential there of him accidentally shouting something about "you never should have left" or whatever. Like, and because he's obviously, there's something psychological going on where he's like displacing or trying to relive stuff. Like, that's what this film is about. But they never bother to go into it properly or have any scenes that relate to it. It's just annoying millionaire guy, but we kind of like him because why? Because I don't know why we're supposed to like him in the end, but he's just annoying millionaire guy. We don't get to see any of his psyche. He tells a sad story, but he's at the end, he like does the thing where he burns the all his grievances and says, "I forgive you," after I guess he's told the story, but he hasn't actually relived anything in a significant way that's allowed him to do that. We haven't actually seen him do that. We've just seen him be a crazy person.
And also the idea of like, and again, this is just maybe nitpicking. I mean, number one, it's like, I know it's not pitched as the best house, but also the idea that a lady that works at a 24-hour diner, would have that home. And never mind the fact of like, Ben Affleck and Christina Applegate are not that different in age. So like, did he grow up in that house while she grew up in that house, or did she not grow up in that house? You know what I mean? Like, when you start thinking about some of these things, if they had explained it away similar to the doodah thing of like, I didn't even grow up in this house, like, this is a house I used to walk by or growing up or something like that.
Yeah, we grew up in like a really shitty apartment. That would have made more sense.
And
because then he has a reason to focus on like his riches now, because he grew up with nothing, and so he's like, this is how I express everything with money. But they didn't do that.
Yeah. Because at the very least, like, this was just the house I would always wish I grew up in, type deal or something like that. Would have added a bit more, because again, because when they were having the moment where they almost kissed, I'm like, wait, did they both grow up in that house, or what the fuck?
No, I mean, they must have just moved in there. But I'm also like, all along the film is about like money, I guess, and not having it. But this house is so nice to me. It looks like a fucking little mansion, right? But they make like jokes about how it's shit. Like, give it a paint job inside. They've like tried to make it look not amazing, but it's still a huge ass house. Just look at how the stairs like turn on the way up and everything. And I'm like, fuck me, that's a nice looking house. But he supposedly grew up in it, even though his mother had to take double shifts at Christmas to make ends meet. Sorry, we've talked about this film for almost an hour, and the film is only an hour and a half. It does feel a lot longer than that, but I guess we should wrap it up. I'll say it ends
In a
They
diner.
have moments at the end of the film that you always have to have at the end of the film. So all of this happens, right? And Missy, that's the girlfriend, her family storms out, and their relationship is over. And finally, Ben Affleck, he's at home. And he's back where he started. It's Christmas and he's alone. He flew too close to the sun or some shit. And James Gandolfini shows up. And I do like that James Gandolfini shows up and he's like, it's just what happens in a film like this. You have to go back to the start and then have something, reconnect, show the change, hero's journey, etc. But James Gandolfini shows up and he's like, "You owe me money," and that I did like that because it's like he's not there to go like, I'll spend Christmas with you. Because at this point, he's broken up and left his wife because of the photos that were on the internet, even though it makes no sense that they were on the internet. And Catherine O'Hara never consented to any of that. But it was on the internet. So James Gandolfini left in his fancy car. And then he shows up there. And then they both have tickets to A Christmas Carol, which is where Doodah, the grandpa actor, is playing now on Christmas Eve. So they both decide to go. And this, I don't even mind. It kind of makes sense because him showing up and going, "You owe me money," that's actually him being, "Hey, it's Christmas and I'm lonely." And that's kind of the same thing I was saying about the repressed emotions. And that kind of makes sense. I do like how that adds up. And they go to the play and, they decide not to divorce, as we said. And then Ben Affleck and Christina Applegate just make out on the steps, and then they're all having food in the diner. And this part also makes no sense that the original girlfriend's family is driving past when they're making out on the steps, and then they're like, "Oh, incest now too," or something, and they drive off. And I'm like, you've already established that there's incest in this family. That's one of the reasons you left the house earlier, remember? So it's just very weird and very like American Pie to have someone drive up like, "What?" lowering their glasses as they're making out. And that's like the end of the film. And then they're in the diner having fucking pancakes, and that's fucking a wrap.
Yeah, that's a wrap. It is so funny because what they just been driving around the whole time, and they're still driving around because they just need to sneak that joke in because they're like, "Fuck, we couldn't have it earlier. It wouldn't make sense that they'd be kissing and making out at the home. That's when everything's hit the fan."
And it's a great point because I gotta emphasize that in this time, Ben Affleck goes back home, has a sad, alone Christmas, watches some cartoons, and has a drink. So he has a sad montage, and they're still just driving around there, apparently still having left where just a few minutes ago.
And they're still cruising around arguing, like, because the dad's yelling at the mom for being hoity-toity or whatever.
Oh, yeah, there's an unnecessary reveal that the girlfriend from the start, her mom actually was with another guy, and so the dad, isn't even her dad. But that's just thrown out as a joke and then never touched on again.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, well, she's a bad person. She deserves to find this out. That's not even her father. Her mother's a bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we end full circle. He never stepped foot in a diner again, but now he's back in a diner, and we got ourselves a new Christmas tradition. And he did get a family because, I mean, honestly,
they totally banged him and Christina Applegate.
It would actually be more emotional, or have more like it would hit more to me if he didn't have this romantic connection. If it just
didn't fuck his way into the family.
Yeah, if it just came about like, even like the fact that they just welcome him into the family, and it's the fact that, family isn't always blood, and you can choose your family in some circumstances, even like Gandolfini being like, "Hey, call me dad," or something like that. But no, I mean, I guess either way works. I'm just saying it would almost hit harder if it's just the fact that he's welcome into the family at the end. But, hey, they're going to have a relationship. They're going to get married. They're going to live happily ever after. They're going to eat pancakes every Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want James Gandolfini to say, "Hey, call me daddy"? See that guy. Big hulking man. I think the perfect summary of this film is on the list of accolades on the Wikipedia, which says that it was nominated for 3 Golden Raspberry Awards at the 2005 ceremony. Now, these are awards that are given to the worst films.
Didn't win the award, though.
Exactly. It's not bad enough to be good because it's bad. It's not good enough to be good because it's good. It lost to Catwoman for Worst Picture. Ben Affleck lost Worst Actor to George Bush in Fahrenheit 9/11. Wait, yeah, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I kind of hate the Golden Raspberry Awards though too. But go ahead.
And it lost for Worst Screenplay to Catwoman. I'm just saying it's not like bad enough to be a fun, culty film. It's just a confusing mess of we didn't connect the dots properly on something that could have been good. So
Agreed.
That's probably why also the release and everything, but it did, it cost $45 million to make. Hopefully James Gandolfini got a fair slice of that, and the box office was $15 million. So there you go. That's surviving Christmas, and we survived watching it and discussing it. Thank you.
Yeah, how did that movie cost that? But I mean, I guess it's got to be just like Affleck's fee, maybe Gandolfini. But yeah, we did it. We 'tis the season. I hope you didn't have to watch it, but I mean, maybe if you did watch it, you got some catharsis from our discussion on it. Or maybe you love it. Maybe this is a movie you watch every Christmas. If that's the case, you could let us know at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com.
And if you have theories, regardless of if you've watched the film or not, of how her pictures ended up on the porn website, please let me know. Is it what there was like an assistant in the photo shoot? Maybe he runs a shady porn thing, even though it's like high profile acting. Because when I read the plot on the wiki, it said that her images were manipulated into the porn site. So then I'm like, they didn't actually shoot porn. They like took out her face and put on porn, which again could have happened even if she wasn't in these glamour shots. What were these glamour shots for? Where did they end up? If you have answers, showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. Please put me out of my misery.
And be on the lookout if you made it this far, by the way, that Godfather Coda is on the horizon, so we will be discussing the Godfather 3 or Godfather Coda, the death of Michael Corleone. We also are in the possession of the Sopranos Road to Respect, the PlayStation 2 game. So I'm very excited to discuss that. And I think I might even be streaming it, in the coming weeks on twitch.tv/Jim and them. So yeah, great stuff happening on the feed. Send us your emails. Please review, subscribe, tell a friend.
And beyond that, I think there's just one more thing, Jim.
Ooh, what's that?
Cut to black.